Hi, today we're talking about gaining peace while living with your trigger. And this is part of um, a series I'm doing on coming out of survival mode. And this is also in response to a question that someone from my YouTube following asked in one of their comments. And can I find peace? How can I find peace while living with my trigger? And so this is really important. This is huge for many people, especially when you want your family to remain intact. Um, and I'm going to read that comment and answer it as well. So that's what we're going to do here. And I'm going to show you in this video how to do this. I'm going to do a high level view of the process and as many nitty gritties pieces as I can give you, and how I help people do this. Um, that's what we're going to do today. And so I'm Rachel McLeod. I am a mental health therapist, a coach, a therapist mentor, and I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And the brain has a beautiful process for this, including healing and regulating and building a life of thriving while um, living with one's trigger. And so I always forget the titles. Um, but this process, even though it's really beautiful, the brains are really good at this, it can get blocked and stopped and impaired. My focus in my work is getting that process unblocked and moving forward so that your brain can create your health and wellness, can help you find peace even while you're living with one of your triggers. Or multiple triggers in many cases. Um, that's me, and that's what we're going to do today. And I'm going to talk about this in this person's um, comment, what they were saying. I'm going to read this here. I should have had this pulled up in advance. Well, I'm not going to shit on myself here. Um, and there was an opportunity to do it in advance. Um, where will I find it? They were talking, this had to do with their 7-year-old child who regressed into autism. And so I need to erase this. So they obviously, with our 7-year-old child, we want to figure it out. Many of our children um, can really be triggers for us. I know none of us like to talk about that. But sometimes our children are showing us exactly who we are. Sometimes our children are playing the role of one of our parents, like they're very similar to our parents. They're triggering us. In this case, the child regressed into autism. And so there's a whole different situation there, and it's triggering, right? A lot of times it's triggering our brain because our brain is like, there is something in front of me that I'm terrified of. I don't know how to deal with. I don't have skills for, I don't have resources for, I'm confused about, and I need to figure something out fast and do it, and it can't figure it out. And so we get triggered. We get fight, flight, freeze, faint, and fawn. And that will happen enough time that, well, they just have to make the face, or they just need to enter the room, and we go straight into shutdown, or fawning, or fighting, outbursts of anger, irritability, frustration, those sorts of things in the fighting, and fawning, pleasing them, forgetting what we said, forgetting our boundaries, forgetting our needs, and just pleasing, 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 appeasing. Okay. So when you live with somebody, this is happening constantly, right? And lots of parents come to me because they're like, I need to get this right because I'm not treating my children properly. Or I need to get this right because I can see that I'm already making them anxious, or our relationship is difficult, right? And I need to do the healing work because I know that I am the one that has the key to unlocking this. If I get my nervous system regulated, if I get skills, then all of a sudden I can handle that. And they're right. With this issue, it's really about you, and it's about, can you handle this? Can you regulate this? Can you be in this with your prefrontal cortex running? In survival mode, our prefrontal cortex is getting shut down by our survival system. I talk about that and why that happens in brain function in a lot of other videos. Um, and so go look there. But really, once our survival system interprets that we're in danger, it starts shutting down the thinking center. and the higher level reasoning, the executive functioning, that can impair our memory, that can make us have foggy brain, that can make us lose. That's where our morals are. That's where we get in here, and we might, in this dysregulated state in the survival system, and we might start mimicking people, mocking people. We might start behaving in ways we do not respect. That's because actually the part of the brain where our morals are is shut down. And so we're not behaving well. Um, that's mad. We don't like that. It doesn't feel good. And a lot of times when we come out of that, we're going straight into a shame spiral. And so that makes it more complex. And so, um, and so, um, I've got all these beepers going. Okay. I don't know how to make my computer uh, not say things. There's a word for that. So I'm just going to have to figure that out another time. Okay, we're going to stay focused, and I'm going to see if I can support my brain here. This helps with symptoms of dyslexia and focus and feeling scrambled and scattered. So I like to do it every once in a while when I'm feeling like this. So okay. Um, Okay. Oh, yes. What I wanted to say was another reason why we really want to be able to find peace, and we want to help our brain do the brain work for finding peace. We don't want to just say, hey, brain, find peace. We're talking about peace. We're thinking about peace. That does not mean that peace is being made. Peace is brains make that like a quilt. Okay. You just don't go look at fabric and say quilt. That's not how it works in the real world. And it's not how it works in brain function either. There's a process for making peace, and it's a mind body process, and we want them to make peace for you. And especially when you're living with your trigger. Okay, we're going back to living with your triggers. A lot of times this is happening in toxic relationships, in marriages, when the partnership has become toxic. This is a beautiful place to find peace and heal, as long as there is safety from physical harm, right? If there's narcissistic behaviors, I'm not talking about narcissistic personality disorder that needs treatment and is not being treated. I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about the narcissism that's native to human brains, right? In those spots where we're not processing and we have inner work to do. When somebody is triggering us, our attachment wounds, or the relationship is lacking empathy, and it's painful, that is a wonderful place where we want to get our brain to create peace. And it's hard to. I want to explain that a little bit more before I move on. I think because um, unfortunately, all of these places that are so painful are really showing you where your brain cannot stay regulated, is experiencing inner conflict to the level with which it cannot create a functional way of moving forward. The brain is showing you exactly where there's an emotional wound. And the brain is showing you in these relationships where you're switching out of a regulated state into dysregulation. It's showing you exactly where it needs support to function at a higher level. These are really wonderful opportunities if you are a mental health therapist helping people do brain work, right? And this is really where you can take your emotional wellness and really build it, skyrocket it, practice it, and really become a phenomenal force in your own life that you really respect, and helps build your confidence and your wellness. And from that place, if you can stay in these places with a regulated nervous system, all of a sudden you have all your executive functioning, and one of the most amazing creations on the planet are the human brain, working for you to create very, very nuanced solutions that will work, and for to create the life of your dreams while living with your trigger. Now, do you have to live with your trigger? No, you don't. I'm not here to tell anybody what their life journey and what their path is about, any of those things. I don't know. I have had clients do successfully well, leaving and going no contact with family members. I had people stay and thrive, and really become powerful forces of creating beautiful wellness, teamwork, synergy in their family homes. So while things were massively toxic, and myself included, and so I'm very much part of the stay and grow until that inner self says we're done here. And that's, I'm really the one that's like, I'm going to rewind that. I really am all about people being able to listen to the inner self, the inner guidance, the self knowing, that sort of self, your journey, your path. Can your brain walk your path? That's really what we want to know here. And if we don't have, if we're dysregulating in these situations, our brain is, we're going into a survival state. We're not walking our path. We're surviving our life, right? Which is fine. There are times for that. And we want to come back into thriving and creating wellness and satisfaction and joy and peace. So that can be done in these really tough situations. And if your system, if your inner, if your peace, if your path includes uh, rocking the heck out of a situation with a regressed child, or a toxic partner, or a mother that is narcissistic, or then that's your path. And so you can thrive, you can do well there. If your path says adios and I'm not doing this, I don't have the skill set for it, then that's your path. And I really don't have a lot of judgment there. I think all of this stuff can be incredibly, incredibly difficult. And so I don't want to do any shaming with any people that have evaluated themselves and found that this is not the right spot for them. Right. So this person whose comment I'm not finding, because that is just what's happening right now. I responded to it. And if I hadn't had responded to it, I'd be able to find it. Um, okay. Actually, I did find it. I found it. Okay. This is at Jade P4802. Hey, I love your knowledge on this. I might like to access your help, but I'm in the UK. FYI, I do support people in the UK. Um, but I am concerned I'm too far gone. I'm making a video about that soon. I want to talk about that because that's a concern of lots of people. Um, I have lots of ACEs. This is from the study Adverse Childhood Experiences um, study, or score. I don't know what the S stands for, but I that means that they've had a lot of childhood traumas. They had a lot of challenging adverse childhood experiences. So the higher your ACEs score, there's lots of challenges that come out of that. And so they're saying, I have lots of ACEs, but I had a nervous breakdown when my son regressed into autism 7 years ago. I've been fighting ever since. He's my trigger. He's unpredictable, and I will need to take care of him forever. I have no family support. Is there hope for me? How can I gain peace while living with my trigger? Okay. So that's what they said. Okay. What I want to show you a couple things here. They have already have a lot of ACEs. That means they have their nervous system is already at an 8, 9, and 10 most days, and that they had a mental breakdown during that time. Uh, and so when they were, I want to revise that, but I'm not going to. Um, okay, so their nervous system is pretty highly dysregulated already from the ACEs, and then when the regression started, it was high. Probably predictability is a real big need for that dysregulated nervous system. And with the child, they're not getting that. And so they're dysregulating. And I'm going to read that again. And then the hope of launching a child and individuating is not there at present with this. And he has no support, or they have no support. Okay, so that means they're already at a 9 and 10, and then things are happening and sending them into even higher states, and then they're probably regulating back here. Okay, now in this situation, there's not a lot of wiggle room. We're already, he is, they're already outside the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is like a 3, 4, 2, 5. right? They're already way up here. So, in this place, we want to start regulating the nervous system. When we find ourselves in a place, many people will come and they'll be very rigid, they're talking very calm, they're very controlled. Your nervous system is already at a high level. You're already at a 10, an 8, and they say, I just hit the roof. I go from 0 to 10 quickly. No, you didn't. You were already really high and you just hit like 11, 12 really instantly because you were working so hard to hold that level of dysregulation, which is high. Just one little bump sends you up. This is a big challenge. This would challenge any person's, any parent's nervous system, but we're already talking about a nervous system that's already taxed. So we have two jobs. One is regulate the nervous system from the complex PTSD, which is a lot. But then two, we've got this person's nervous system has to regulate with this child, and then also not only regulate with the child, so three, it's also got to build skills for something entirely new, something that was not expected. Now, I don't know how long they've been in the situation. They may have already had a bunch of new experiences, and the learning will probably happen pretty quickly. The longer they've been in it, the more data is available, and once it starts processing, it starts loading up very quickly. um, and so I don't know if I would even worry about building skills at this point because that should happen naturally. Now, if we are going to get the brain to make peace, we need to be able to support it to get into its peacemaking state, which is happens when the nervous system regulates. Now, this nervous system is already dysregulated so much. This is also happening with um, uh, relationships where there's toxicity. This is also happening if you're just living with people and you already have the ACEs, you're already here. We are just the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to be very skillful. I am not walking somebody through part 2 and 3 and 4 of my program at this point. I really want somebody to start my program when they can, their nervous system is around a 6, a 7 in at rest, right? That might be they go up to an 8 and 10 and 11 and 12, but I need this one dropped a little bit, at least 2 levels, which is going to feel like $1 million for this person. Um, and so, really, the only thing we're going to do, we're not even going to be smart or intelligent about this. We're just going to start regulating the nervous system. So I'm going to be having them do things like tapping. I teach 3 interventions. I'm working on, I want them to, the first thing we do in a session, well, actually, it's the last thing we do in the first session in therapy, but the first thing we're doing in any place else, the coaching on my online program, is I want to make sure that they have an intervention that works directly and specifically with their survival system, that we can actually see observable results of regulation. When the brain is regulating, we're going to see some very specific things happen. I want to see them. I want to do the intervention. They take 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and I want to see what the brain does with that kind of support. I'm watching. Are you regulating or are you not? If you're not, that intervention goes. Let's try the next one. And am I seeing the signs? Is your brain doing the things? So that's really really important. Once we have one of those, now that's all we're doing. We are playing regulation games. How many times can you get your nervous system regulated in a day? And regulating at this state with this level of complex PTSD, or complex distress, is we might only they might not notice big drops, but they might notice some of these things. Maybe they can get their shoulders to relax a little bit. And maybe while we're doing the interventions, they're seeing new options and ideas flow through their mind. Yeah, or maybe the racing thoughts slow down to half speed. Winning, it might be still a whole hurricane for another person, but in this brain, we did something that helped the brain slow down its own thoughts. Yes. Okay. All of these little wins mean big things in nervous system regulation land. And so, a lot of times, some of the work in these situations is um, celebrating the little wins and keep going. Also, not losing hope and despair, because there's just not almost every bit of energy is being used by this system to regulate or to keep it together. Maybe not even regulate, just to survive these experiences. And what we want to do, I want to tell the story. Like if we have a big glass of water over here and it's in survive land, all the it's full, right? And it's splashing over. And then we've got the water over here, this glass over here in regulation land, and it's kind of empty. We want to scoop. We want to get the water scooping over. We want to start filling this, the regulation. We want to start filling it up. The ability to regulate everything awesome in the brain, in the mind body system, is contingent upon regulation. That is why I don't do any therapy. I don't do anything without the ability to regulate the nervous system while we're doing it. I'm just not. And plus, at this point, if we're so dysregulated, that means your brain is not good at this. And I don't, no offense, it's just, I mean, take me out for a marathon and watch how not good at this I am. I'm going to show you all the signs. I'm going to show you all the signs quickly, okay? And so this, if we're already this dysregulated, the brain is saying, you lost me and my ability to regulate a long time ago. I'm just on this ride trying to survive at this point, right? And so we've got to practice. These little small wins are going to be, they're going to turn into something really powerful. And if we can stay on it, this is why I have people do about 2 hours of tapping per week, per day, tapping, regulating the nervous system in any way, collarbone breathing, um, uh, acupuncture. I will send this person, I would send them to all the things. I don't know if they could afford all the things, right? A lot of the things that are the most beneficial, sometimes we're afraid of them. I have so many clients and I'm like, gosh, I'd love to pull an acupuncturist on this team. They're afraid of needles and they don't want to work. They have so many fish to fry, we can't get in there and work on their needle phobia. Okay, so we'll get there, right? And so we're just going all out nervous system regulation. And that's really the very first steps of this. Once that happens, now, once the nervous system regulation begins to fill up, the water is moved over here. That regulation also means executive functioning. With the executive functioning ability, we're going to see new solutions, new ideas generating. We're going to notice that the brain is starting to get strategic about this. Like, you know what? We've been allowing this loop a couple times. I bet you we could do this a little differently, right? Yes, that's what I want your brain thinking about. I don't want your brain thinking about how you're going to survive this. I want to think about how are we going to work smarter, not harder? How are we going to win? How are we going to create a win-win? Those are the thoughts I want to have. That's all in the executive functioning. That's all in the prefrontal cortex and the top part of the brain. That is not in the survival system at all. The survival system does not do any of that. And when you're running on so much survival mode, you don't get to use the other parts of the brain that are phenomenal at creating peace, creating solutions, creating wellness, creating mastery, right? And we want those. We want those on those really a ton. That's what we want to do. Okay. Okay. So that is really what we're up against, what we're working on. And it doesn't sound very fancy, and I'm going to sneeze. It doesn't sound very fancy, but it is. It's the fanciest thing we got going on. It is such a powerful thing to be able to be in a regulated state. And when you're so dysregulated and you're so far in survival mode, it can feel like the farthest thing away, but it's really not. It's a couple of deep breaths, slow on the exhale, but you're going to have to do this a lot, right? I talked about 2 hours per day. Yeah, we're going to work this. And there's lots of passive strategies too. There's so many ways to give your survival system so much support that it starts allowing the stress to get processed, the emotions to get digested. That's what we need, and that digestion happens up here in the executive functioning, the top parts of the brain. We want the survival system to let those parts turn on, let those parts of the brain work, let them have the conversation with the body. Stop blocking everything. We're going to live. We're going to live. That's what we're sending. We're speaking to the survival system in its native language, where it's hearing us say, we're safe, we're safe, we're safe, in a way that means something to the survival system. You cannot just talk at the survival system. It doesn't speak that language. It wants to know from the body, are we going to live? Are we safe? And it has ways of interpreting that. Eating is a way of interpreting that. That's sometimes why we have eating issues and emotional eating. We're actually having a very high level conversation with the survival system, and we're actually regulating and calming. It's just that eating has some consequences to it. It's not fabulous for some other aspects of our life. And so that's why it's really great to have some interventions that works really directly, really specifically with that part of the brain, and doesn't have any negative side effects except for maybe you look weird, you feel a little weird, right? Because some of the interventions look like this, right? We're over here, we're just tapping. Some of them are, some of them, right? We're talking to the brain. We're not, and we're so out of practice talking to the brain in a way that's not like that's functional, that these things look strange, but really when we were tribal we were doing this stuff all the time. We were dancing around a fire, the fire flames were flickering, we were touching each other, hugging each other, patting each other on the back, wrestling. We were playing and smiling and touching and listening to music, and that's stuff for the brain. That's how this part of the brain figures out if we're safe or not. It's not by sitting in a therapist's office talking about all the problems. That does not signal safety to the brain. That's why we're not healing. That's why we're not resolving these issues. That's why we're not going through our brain's process for making peace. And if you want to go do all the things, you want to talk in your therapist's office about all the things, you sit in there with her and do this. Sit in there with him and tap. Engage that part of the brain during these conversations, and you'll watch it do amazing things. That survival system has got to allow the loop from the body to the prefrontal cortex and back. It's got to get out of the way. It's got to allow that to happen. And that's when the whole thing unlocks. And so, like I said, it doesn't sound very magical, but when all of a sudden your brain is creating things, I'm going to show you something. It was a testimonial left by somebody who is on week 4 of my program. And I'm not going to say who they are because I don't have permission to do that. But they left it in my coaching, in my Facebook group. And I kind of giggled because, let me see if I can find it. I'm finding all the things. I was giggling because people say this all the time. And I have a hard time explaining it myself. But this is what she says. Um, she said, now that it's week 4, I'm finding there's a lot more ease and clarity in my body and mind, and more curiosity. Curiosity is a very awesome telltale sign that your executive functioning is running. The more curiosity you have, if you're curious about something, you are not in survival mode at that moment. So we are talking. She's sharing that her nervous system is regulating, and she's noticing it be there more often. And then she says, "I'm not exactly sure what happened here, but it feels like I've been releasing some intense stress." Now, mind you, I have put this, she's in part 4 of my program. She has worked her tail off, because if she's doing the program like I laid it out, now that doesn't mean it's difficult or not difficult or like she's running laps. But week 1, she's working through stressors. Week 2, events. Week 3, she's learning some advanced skills. Week 4, well, she's working already on subconscious programming. She has done a lot of work. In EMDR therapy training, we only learned part 2, the events, and then we learned a little bit of advanced skills. That blew my mind. I had no idea what they were talking about, right? But she's done a lot of work, and now she's saying, I don't really know what happened here, but, right? That space in the regulated nervous system, that time spent there, the brain is reorganizing at its mass capacity, its optimal capacity. That is magical. Okay, when your brain is doing what brains can do, That's powerful. That stuff, I don't even want to play and tell the brain. I don't want to direct it during that time. I don't want to, because it is so much better than all of us. And I tell people, get out of there. don't sit there and look around at it. Go back to work. Keep regulating your nervous system. Keep the door open. They're working in there. So that's uh, but what happens is as you, after this time in regulation, you're processing the events and your programming and things are working, and you're like, hey, and let's get that on the barbecue. When they look at me and I totally become defensive, let's get that process too, actually. And what about that? I'm screaming in my head when they're doing that. Let's get that on there. Let's get them looking at it. Let's put that through the executive functioning. Right. And that's what we're doing in my program. We're just grabbing stuff and throwing it up there. And then day 3, day 4, you start noticing you're responding differently. You're doing things differently. Your mood is more elevated. That's because they got to work. This process is a lot easier than we're making it currently. You have such amazing, powerful parts of you at work. They just need specific support. If they don't get the support, they will not be able to work for you. That's how it works. That's part of our design. We can fight with it. We can argue about it if we want to. As a matter of fact, I encourage people to throw fits. Throw yourself on the ground, kick your legs, and scream. It's beautiful brain work. It's bilateral stimulation. It's almost as good as EMDR, except for you might bump your foot on something and you're going to look like a toddler. I'm fine with that. I prefer you to look like a toddler and have healthy brain function, because when you get up, you're going to have matured some, because your brain actually went through its maturation process, because it actually got the brain support in the EMDR that you just did on the floor. Anyway, I'm being silly now, but I'm not. I really mean that. If you're one of my clients, or you're going to be, you're welcome to throw a fit at any time. We're just going to reduce harm, right? Please don't do so in a board meeting, unless you want to. I got your back. So that's all. That's all from me. I do want to invite you to try a new way of working with your brain. Try a way that is much easier, that you don't have to be super smart. As a matter of fact, sometimes you got to just turn the smarts off for a moment. So if you don't feel very smart, this is exactly the lane you want to be in. If you're super smart, I'm going to ask you to set it to the side for a moment. And we're going to support this part of the brain that has a different kind of smarts. It has a different kind of intelligence. And we need to provide it with support so that this whole process is running optimally. So in invitation to that, I want to invite you to let me teach you my 3 favorite interventions for this. Um, I teach 3 different interventions. They are the ones that I start all of my clients on. They are the ones that I found to be the most direct, like most popular matches. As a matter of fact, 97-ish% of my clients, one of those is their favorite out of the 3. And so only very few people do I have to go pull some out from the back and throw it on the table. I would even say probably 98%, maybe 99. I can only think of 3 people that had to start with a different intervention out of hundreds. I could do the math on that. But I want to teach you these interventions. I teach these for free in my online program called Interventions for Inner World Transformation. And it's a short program, because I'm trying to get you handed equipped with an intervention and using it. Like, that's what's most important. Do you use it? Does it work? And so I show you how to determine if it works or not. Some of you will try these interventions and you'll know instantly that it works. Some of you will be like, I don't know if I feel anything. That's a smaller percentage. But when you go and you look at what we're looking for to show whether it worked or not, then you're like, oh, okay. Okay, so I want to invite you to enroll in that. I've left the links to that in the descriptions part of this, and yeah, and if you find a matching one, you may want to participate in my program, Inner World Transformation, which is the program I walk all my therapy and coaching clients through. And there are even opportunities for me to walk you step by step through that process to resolve your symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and make your life the life that you want. Get rid of those things and really be able to transform the way you do life and engage in your relationships. So that's that. Wonderful connecting with you. And I hope you got a lot out of this video. And if you have any questions, if it brought up stuff, put it in the comments. I will respond. Okay, take care. Bye.